conflict is a front door to deeper intimacy if we've got the skills to navigate it skillfully. Usually when conflict comes alive, we don't see the underlying unmet needs. But as soon as pain arises, we have an instinctual response to think, whose fault is it? Who's the villain? Who's wrong? People think the world of repair is all soft, but it's fierce as fuck. Actually.
Do you see that people have a bit of a fear that there could be unmet need, not just in themselves, but in their partners?
Conflict has its own momentum. Conflict's kind of like an avalanche. One tiny slip and the whole hillside's gone and the town at the bottom is buried.
How do we receive criticism and kind of transmute it into loving feedback?
Every single time you've lit a candle, somewhere in the room a shadow is being cast.
So listeners, back with another episode of the podcast. Today we're going to be talking about the really important aspects of compassion, empathy, and how we can bring those into the way that we can communicate. Because I see from speaking to hundreds of men that this communication aspect is the one thing, well, one of many things that we are not schooled on well, and how to deliver information, how to receive criticism, but also how can we deeply connect with our partners, even in the moments of conflict, even in the moments when boundaries are set, and use those moments as ways for us to come closer together instead of pushing us apart. And today I have with us a wonderful man, a man who is a real expert in the area of communication and relationships and empathy, and how we can bring all those into the world more and more. We have today with us James Gill. How are you doing today, James?
Great, David. So good to be with you. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you. Real pleasure to have you here. First question I want to kick off with actually is, you've been in this work for a while now, and I guess I always like to start here often actually is like, what was the wound or the breakdown or breakthrough that led you into this area of work?
Well, I guess I would have to say that maybe if I go way back, at the age of 3, my dad and my mum separated. And so I grew up in mum's pain. And I grew up in like a fractured family that, by the way, did it very well. Like my parents were always, like I never heard my parents say a bad thing about each other. Even, as the divorce was happening into the future. So they did it very beautifully. They never asked us to choose sides. They never kind of, spewed their pain onto us as kids. But I'd have to say, it would make sense if growing up in that rupture had me, later in life really, really want people to experience rupture differently, really wanting my deepest commitment really is that all beings get to experience attunement, get to experience loving awareness in every moment. And I guess as a little boy, I felt kind of alone in the rupture between my parents. Also, carrying my mum's pain, feeling a bit estranged from my dad for many years. So I guess that's probably what had me be now immersed in the most tender, painful relational moments with hundreds and thousands of people all over the world. Because why else would I want to stand in that difficulty, right?
Yeah, there's so many easier things we could do with our time.
Yeah, really. Like I could be pulling beers or making coffee. Yeah, crazy.
Yeah. And is that something you notice with a lot of men, this experience of feeling like a distance from fathers, distance, like growing up with this distance, even when the fathers are right next to them, they wake up with them every morning, that they experience this kind of distance of not knowing them, like a man who is there, but they can never fully understand and know.
Yeah, I think most of the men in my life have had difficult relationships with their fathers, which is not to say that those relationships haven't been deeply loving. But I guess at my age, like I'm 53, and, most of the men in my age group, friends of mine, have had a deeper longing for, I guess, a depth of relationship with their dads that was never forthcoming. And I think what we might lack, I mean, this is a massive generalization, but in general, what we might lack as men is to understand masculine presence, like to really be eye to eye with another man and feel the depth of him, feel his fierce love, his unfuckwithability, his presence, his groundedness. I felt that from my dad at times, but I wasn't around him that much as an adult, and I didn't really get that from anywhere else in the world. And how this relates to communication is that what's required of us, not just men, all human beings, but while we're on the topic of men, what's required of us is to try and summon a very deep presence, like a real expansive, fierce love, to be able to listen behind the surface layer ripples of the conflict into what both hearts are aching for, and to stay really present with him or her or them, whoever's in this rupture moment with us, to stay really present. I don't know a lot of men who've had that very well modeled for them. So it's a real, like in terms of the men that I work with, it's a massive challenge for us to actually summon that clarity of energy, that grounded strength, that fierce love. Sometimes, David, people think the world of repair is all soft, but it's fierce as fuck, actually. To repair authentically, we need a ferocity in our love. We need an unstoppability in our curiosity. It's not soft, it's not gentle, it's not flowery, it's not pretty. It's fiercely present. Yeah, most of us have never really got that from a community of men. I know a lot of the men in my life have gone to seek a community of men to be able to hold them. You know, we need to be held by men to know what that kind of presence is. Yeah.
And you mentioning there conflict, and we grew up with this idea conflict is bad. We were indoctrinated with this idea that conflict is the problem.
Yeah.
From your perspective and your experience of working with thousands of people, why is it that we think conflict is the problem?
Well, I think we're trained to think that pain is wrong. Pain is bad. If conflict didn't involve one or both of us experiencing painful feelings, then I don't think we would have that flavor. It wouldn't have that taste. But as soon as pain arises, we have an instinctual response to think, uh-oh, this is bad, this is wrong. And then the mind immediately goes into who's the source of the badness? Whose fault is it? Who's the villain? Who's wrong? That's kind of a very well developed survival mechanism. Actually, it's part of our threat response. Like if I'm feeling pain, something's up. What direction do I need to move in order to reduce pain? But it's a very unhelpful survival mechanism, because as soon as we see pain is bad or wrong and we see conflict is a problem, then boom, we go into sides, and it becomes a conversation about whose fault the conflict is, which is the least helpful conversation we could possibly have. Whose fault is it is so far off the mark in terms of what's required to repair. And that, for your listeners, some of you might be like, what, isn't that the first question we need to ask? Whose fault is it? So that we can get accountability, so that we can work out what needs to happen to repair. But no, whose fault is it is miles away from the area of repair that I hang out in all day, every day. But it's a very natural response. Very natural response. So I think, that gives us our perspective on conflict is bad. And we think relationships with conflict in them are bad. I'm in this extraordinary relationship at the moment, romantic relationship, but it's the depth of complexity and chaos that we've had to walk through, and the amount of pain that we've had to tend to, and the amount of repair conversations, like so far in advance of what I've ever experienced. But to see that as like a symptom of, the relationship's not working is simply not true. It's too simplified. How I like to work with conflict is that we can learn to see that conflict is actually the front door to deeper intimacy. Always. If we've got the skills to navigate it skillfully, it will always take us deeper. Because any moment of conflict is actually the uprising of unmet needs. Our unmet needs come alive, their unmet needs come alive. And if we can skillfully recognize and tend to those unmet needs, then the relationship just got steadier, more mutual, more satisfying, safer, deeper trust. It's just that usually when conflict comes alive, we don't see the underlying unmet needs. We get lost in who's good, who's bad, whose fault is it, who should, who shouldn't, why did you, why couldn't you? And that takes us way off track. So what I teach is how to slow down, because conflict has its own momentum. Conflict is kind of like an avalanche. One tiny slip and the whole hillside's gone and the town at the bottom is buried. And we're like, how did that happen? Slow down and start to listen behind what's being said, behind what's being done, into what are we longing for and what are we suffering with. That sounds simple, but it takes so much practice. And, I've been sitting in this work for 17 years now, David, and like when the shit hits the fan in my life, immediately my mind goes straight into who's wrong, who's right, who's bad, who's good, straight away. It's just now I can catch it and I've got an alternative to reach for.
That, the right wrong just becomes, when we get into that fault and who's right and who's wrong, becomes adversarial, right? It's like we're two boxers, we're putting on gloves and we're like, okay, let's do this out until the end. And so many people, like you said, they get stuck in that layer of just like, you did this, no, I didn't, you did this, and it tears them apart. But I love how you describe the slowing down as well, because in the heat of the moment, that, as the phrase says, right, in the heat of the moment, everything gets faster. The anxiety, the fear, the threat response is all there. We never really get to that layer beneath. We don't have the curiosity. We don't have the language skills. We don't even have the internal curiosity to be like, oh, actually, what is that? What am I actually longing for here? What is my suffering? And I wonder, a question for you. Do you see that people have a bit of a fear actually about recognizing that there could be unmet need, not just in themselves, but in their partners? Is there like some shame attached to that we kind of consciously, unconsciously aware of, that, oh, if my partner has an unmet need and I don't know about it and I haven't been meeting it, that means that I am ... or our relationship is ...
Well, let's peel it back another layer still. In all my years, it has been shown to me 100% of the time that any human being finds it difficult to recognize the experience they're having. And I break it down into longing and pain just because those two buckets are really good to fill up with data and to investigate and to honor and to deeply, to bathe in loving awareness, as I often say. But a human being will really struggle to locate their longing, it takes a lot. I'm on a call week after week after week with human beings who have specifically chosen this pathway of training. So they're hungry for it, right? But still, they get lost in their analysis. They get lost in story making. Someone does something and they're like, how could you be so nasty? How could you be so selfish? I can't believe you're so critical. Lost in the story making without being able to recognize what just came alive in me. What's my longing? What's my pain alive in me, in here, subjective? What's my subjective experience? And in my book, I go into some details around, there's a bunch of reasons why we as human beings might struggle to identify our experience. First of all, the mind is very quick to reach conclusions. So I give a loving speech at my daughter's 22nd birthday. I speak about the 3 aspects of her character that I just, cherish so deeply. And at the other end of the table, she's got her arms crossed and she's looking really kind of uptight and anxious and cross with me, if I'm honest. And for me in that moment, it's so easy for my mind to tell the story of she's so unappreciative, or she's so moody, or they're so, or he's so. Immediately we go into analysis. It takes quite the awareness to turn inwards and say, what just happened in here? I started to feel hurt, unappreciated, uncared for, unreceived. What am I longing for? Well, I want my daughter to feel celebrated, and I want to feel fully expressed in my love for her. So all of those are what I find when I look inward. We have to slow down in order to do that and not trust what the mind has already told us, which is that she's so or he's so. So that's the first thing. Analysis is more compelling and louder and more and quicker to arrive. Experience is quieter and arrives later. And takes some real introspection, like how do I look inward? How do I know what this is? How do I know what this tension in my chest is? How do I know what this strange electric feelings in my arm is, or the sweat on my brow? What is that? What is happening for me? So that's the first thing. The second thing that makes it very difficult for us to be able to recognize our experience, which is the pathway to recognizing what the unmet need might be, is that for the longest time in our lives, when we were little and we were surrounded by very well-meaning but unskilled caregivers, when we did share our experience, it got shut down or dismissed, most likely. As a boy, when I was fearful of the monster under my bed and I asked Mum to check, she said, "Don't be silly, there's no monster, good night." That's not a callous thing for my mum to do, but there's a boy in the dark now just having his fear unrecognized. So his fear's there still. He still thinks there's a monster under the bed, and now he's left feeling bad about or wrong for identifying what he was experiencing. Or I feel angry and I, thump my fist on the carpet, and Dad says, "If you're going to behave like that, go to your room. Come back out when you're calm." And he's giving me the message, actually. He's a beautiful, loving dad, every intention of caring for us. But in that moment, he's giving us the message, you don't get loved unless you change what's going on inside you. You only get my warmth when you come back and you're calm. You don't get my warmth in your anger. So all of these little moments of misattunement in our early years, most likely for many of us, have all added up to the conclusion of it's not really safe to recognize and share my experience. It'll probably get blamed on me or dismissed or minimized or argued against or rationalized away. And so it's safer to stay in analysis. It's safer just to think that that guy at the service station's an asshole rather than to recognize I felt fearful. So if we can't recognize our experience, we're not going to recognize what we need next. We can't recognize the unmet needs, so we can't ever communicate it. So therefore, we're in relationships where our needs are not being met, where there are unmet needs alive in us, and they're not being met, they're not being communicated, and that's going to slowly erode intimacy. It's going to leave us feeling just like 0.5% more resentful every evening. Just slow accumulations of loss of trust because we never learned how to look inward and communicate outwardly about what's here for me and what I might need next to feel more loved, more safe, more secure, more cherished, more appreciated, safer. Yeah. So it's kind of a tragedy. I mean, this work is like, there's a lot of grief. When people really step into the depths of this work, a lot of grief comes up because we look back on our lives and we think, where was the attunement? Where was the loving, where was the fierce loving presence from our caregivers, from our communities? And then we look back at our parents' lives and we wonder, where was the attunement for them and for their grandparents? And, you know, not to oversimplify things, but when I look out there at the world at the moment with the horrific stories around predation and rape and war and neglect and like just unfathomable pain and darkness, to me, I just see a crisis of attunement. Like every human being in our most hurtful actions, it's actually a cry to be seen. The most hideous things we do to other human beings are an expression of the pain we need recognized. That's where hideous behavior comes from. That's why I drop a bomb on a community, is because I need my pain acknowledged, and I'll do it through giving you a taste of it. So yeah, a lot of grief and a lot of joy, a lot of hope as well, because we can learn the art of attunement to ourselves and therefore bring attunement to others. We can learn to parent our kids differently. We can learn to stay present with our partner when they're upset so they feel safer than they have. We can learn those skills, but it's a journey.
You said a lot there, but you mentioned the word attunement a few times, and I just want to get a definition, your definition of what attunement means.
Yeah, well, when I train people in attuning, and which I'm one of those people, I'm constantly kind of having to train myself in being present with other people and with myself. Attunement really is the act of bringing a fierce, loving yes to exactly what's there. I'm not trying to get you out of your pain. I'm not trying to rationally understand it in order for it to have permission to exist. I'm not trying to compare it against anything. I'm not trying to shrink it for you, even though it would be a loving intention for me to try and shrink your pain. I'm not trying to dismiss it in favor of my beautiful intentions that I had that you misunderstood me with. It's a fierce, loving yes. So attunement really is, I'm right here with you, recognizing the depth of exactly what you're experiencing. So you have full permission to be in the experience, and you've got my presence, you've got my care, you've got my alliance in this moment. You can see how important that would have been to us as kids, right? Like,
yeah,
attunement in the monster under the bed moment would have been my mum, before she flicked off the light and closed the door, taking moments and to say, of course you're scared, my boy. Maybe she sits down on the bed and just stays with me for an extra half a minute. Maybe she says, should we look under there together? Maybe she says, I was scared like that when I was your age as well. All of these little moments of giving me her loving presence, so the pain that was alive in me could be seen and I could feel her alliance. I'm not alone with what I'm in. Whereas there's no monster good night leaves me alone with what I'm experiencing.
Yeah. I have a 20-month-old son.
Got it.
And he's not quite talking yet. So I am really aware of the little moments of attunement. And I'm also painfully aware of the moments when I miss it, like,
yeah. And we will.
Even this morning, I'm trying to get him ready to get him to nursery, and he decides to get on his bike. And then he falls off his bike, and I'm like, come on, John. He's like, in a kind of whingy voice, but there's no actual pain. I'm like, come on, and in that moment, literally moments later, I'm like, all I need to do was go, I understand you've fallen off your bike and it's a bit awkward for you. Come on, I'll help you out, or I'm here with you, instead of wanting to move away from his thing back to my agenda.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Well caught. And it's not bad or wrong of us to miss those moments. In fact, we'll miss millions of them. But if we do have an awareness on where are the moments of attunement that I'm catching and that I'm missing, we are miles ahead, looking for opportunities to attune to our kids, to attune to our partners, to attune to our work colleagues, like little moments of attunement. I'll give you an example. It happened a little while ago. I mean, I don't tend to invest a lot of this work in relationships with like the person in the checkout in the supermarket, for example. I tend to save this work for people I really care about. Mm. And then I can be a bit of an asshole to other people sometimes. Just because I'm caught up in my own bloody, self-absorbed story, like we all are. But I was in the supermarket, I think it was last year sometime, and I brought my stuff. I had a few things, and I kind of looked up to kind of try and create some connection between me and the woman who was serving me. Her eyes were downcast. She kind of like grumpily put my things, blip, 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 shoved them in a bag, had a loud exhale, kind of held out her hand, like waiting for my cut. And I was just like, I was on the verge of just going, what the fuck is wrong with you? Because could you feel actually in that moment that I'm actually feeling like a bit disregarded, a bit uncared for, maybe even rejected. My smile wasn't returned, so I kind of feel a bit rejected. Might sound a bit stupid, but these are the feelings that come alive in us. And I was just about to leap into that judgment of her, even just secretly. And then I stopped and I just thought, hang on a sec. What this work has taught me over time is that all human behavior arises from somewhere. Can I see where this is arising from? And I looked at her, and it didn't take me long to think to myself, what a fucking nightmare of a job. For you to stand there for, 8 hours on your feet, dealing with people who are just lost in their own world, on their phones, not really appreciating you, selling shit you don't believe in. And I just turned to her and I said, this job must be so demanding for you at times. And she paused and she looked up at me and she said, thank you. It's been a shitty day. And I just nodded and she said, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for taking it out on you. What happened in that moment? See, if I'd met her with like, what the fuck's your problem? She would have contracted because she would have experienced being made wrong for a very real experience she was having, being completely unseen for the shitty day she's had, just judged on the surface behaviour without the context of what it's been like for her. But because I was actually able to see into what I thought could be her experience, suddenly she felt recognised. And then what came forward, David, was accountability. I feel seen. Thank you. I'm sorry for being a bit grumpy. There's a moment of human to human, heart to heart communication. I was able to just offer her a little bit of attunement. I see you. I see you. You are not your behavior. I see where your behavior is arising from, and it must suck to be you. Boom. There she was, feeling recognized. Yeah. So, I mean, all day, every day, we're faced with moments where we could be offering fierce, loving awareness and making a difference, leaving people feeling seen. But we have to learn the skills to do it. And most of us are walking around feeling so unseen by everyone else in the world that why would we be the one to leave other people feeling seen? They should start. We should be the beneficiaries first. Yeah, I mean, it's true. Like we have, we have really serious relational pain in relationships that matter most to us, and we feel unrecognized and unseen and unappreciated. And so we kind of contract, thinking that step one surely is that they should recognize us. Then I might recognize them. But in the work that I teach, we go first, because repair doesn't work the other way. Repair requires us to go first, which is challenging in itself.
Yeah, we go first. I was talking to someone else for the podcast last week. He said exactly the same thing, is the person with the knowledge almost must choose to go first, or we're always in a standoff of waiting for the other person to, we're all both standing there with our arms crossed, waiting for the other person to acknowledge, that repair needs to happen. And I think of many of the people that I've worked with and coached where, they feel like they're the ones always going first. And I imagine you speak to a lot of those people as well.
Yeah, and I am one of those people as well. I get asked that question all the time. And before I touch on that, I've come to recognize a very interesting thing in conflict. It occurs to us as if they are the wrongdoer. They said or did that thing. We're aware of how upset we feel. So they're clearly the wrongdoer and we're the wronged party. But the interesting thing is, David, if we stood in their shoes, they view us as the wrongdoer because we took something a certain way. And how dare we take it that way when they've been so generous or loving? So they're aware of their pain and they look through their pain lens at us and they see the pain causer. So this deadlock, this like folded arms, I won't unless you do, and I only will if you do first, that's the psychology behind all war, actually. I'll only put down my arms when you do. And if you don't, then I won't. That keeps us locked in opposition. So, I have a silly little example of that, but just a little personal moment. A couple of weeks ago, I was catching up with my beautiful sisters and my mum and all of our kids, bit of a family get together as we do often. And I was aware that both my sisters were going through a really difficult time for various reasons. And I thought, as the younger brother, I'm going to step in and just take the pressure off. So I messaged them both and said, don't worry about dinner. Like we normally do a shared dinner, everyone brings something. And I just knew that it was kind of going to be like too much. So I just said, don't worry about dinner. I'm going to order pizzas for us all, pay for them, and I'll just see everyone at 6 with all the food for us. So can you feel how much I was really longing to ease the burden for the sisters that I love? I checked in a couple of hours later saying, hey, by the way, I do need to know what your household wants so I can order, so I can make sure everyone's got their dietary requirements. See, once again, my beautiful intention of leaving everyone feeling considered and catered for. And I get back a message from one of my sisters going, like, holy shit, like, does it all need to be so pressured? So this is what I've come to call the cosmic irony or the cosmic tragedy. Every conflict that we've ever experienced takes this form. Here I am with very valid intentions, specifically, David, specifically wanting to ease the pressure. That's the only reason. I want to ease the pressure and I want to feel that beautiful feeling inside that's like, I contributed to people I love. At the very same time, here's the irony, at the very same time, one of my sisters experiences increased pressure. To the mind, that makes no sense. To the mind, we want to say, oh, well, she's being ridiculous, or maybe you were not very thoughtful. But actually, my beautiful intentions and her very real pain coexist in that moment. So many directions to go here. Can I come back to your question? Remind me of your question.
Let me come back to a question. I like this thread, right? And the reason why is I'm going to give a personal example.
Yeah,
really,
great.
when you said this is, we have a 20-month-year-old baby, and in this 20 months, 2 years, I see that I've taken on a new role for me is like provider as man. And why I'm saying this, because I think it's important, because a lot of guys I speak to, and I know a lot of men feel this. So I've put myself like headfirst into working.
Yeah.
Working harder, working more, creating more, trying to create the safety of finances and so forth, to remove the burden from my partner so that she still works, but it is not full of burden. But also that at least when she's looking after with our little boy, she doesn't feel the burden of this. And we've discussed this, but what I unwittingly do is, because I put all my energy into this, I don't have energy for her. I don't have put the energy I probably put into before into the relationship of like, compliments and loving care and so forth, because I feel the drain of, thinking about work, putting energy into work and so forth. And her pain, and I know this, but the way you described it just there really made it really stark, is like her pain is the pain of being unseen. But then she goes into the pressure that she feels is then to almost clear more space for me to do what I do, so that I'm not burdened by the other things of life. And then her pain becomes the feeling of being unseen and unmet in love, in the loving way that she wants to be met. And my pain becomes the burden of carrying all of this, of the kind of providing and supporting and so forth. But that, when you describe the example there of yourself and your sister, it just really like put that into very clear terms for me, even though I knew it, but the way you describe it, it's like, I'm seeing my whole experience through my lens. And I do see her lens, but mine's predominant in my mind and psyche. And she sees mine, but hers is predominant in hers. And how that creates distance between us.
Yes, exactly. Oh, that's right. We were talking about them looking like the pain causer through our lens. I love that you've started to speak to this, David. We see the world through our lens. That's not new to any of us, but I promise you it is groundbreaking in the realm of repair, because if you cannot see that you look through a lens that only gives you half a truth. If you can't see that, then you'll start to relate to what you see as the whole truth. And that is dangerous territory. So I love thank you for being so willing to bring forward this personal example. Do you mind if we explore a little bit?
Yeah, go for it.
You talk about the longing to provide, your intention as being the provider. Tell me more about, because we really want to capture your goodness. We really want to capture the essence of what your intentions are. The reason I'm zooming in on this right now is because I want your listeners to do the same for their own intentions, whatever the upset that they might be thinking about right now between them and siblings, or them and a partner, or them and a friend, or tune into your beautiful intentions, your very human longings. So let's go underneath wanting to provide. Tell me more about that. What are you hoping for? What are you wanting to leave your woman experiencing? What do you want to experience in stepping more into that provider role? Talk to me more about the beauty that lies there.
Yeah, for her, kind of security and ease and like less burden, particularly around kind of splitting her attention, as she steps back into kind of full-time work from, looking after a little boy, Bjorn. I think my intention is to create spaciousness, and remove worry. And some of that is definitely linked to my own childhood experience around money and how that felt when I was a kid growing up, and not wanting that experience to be something that my little boy has through his years.
Yeah, beautiful. Love that. Very articulate. So notice that we're just slowing down at the moment rather than leaping into what it means about her or you and deciding whose fault and what to do about it. All of that's incidental right now. What we want to do is slow down and feel into it. So you've just started to articulate part of your experience. I'm longing to create space and remove worry for my boy, for my woman, for me. I want to leave her feeling a sense of feeling secure, easeful, with less of a burden, and just kind of be able to just rest her attention on Bjorn. Just to be present without worry, without stress. Can we just take a moment to recognize how beautiful that is of you to want those things? What a clear expression of devotion and care and love and protection and provision that is. Pure. Beautiful. And so we're going to hold that in one hand. And we're always just got to be able to come back to that and recognize how magnificent it is. Even if our partner or our child or the world can't recognize our goodness, we can. We're the expert on it, actually. Because what we're longing for is actually alive in us. All we've got to do is recognize it and articulate it and honor it. Even if no fucker on the planet can, we can. Self-attunement. Secondly, we've got another hand. That's convenient. Let's start to feel into what I will frame now as the unintended pain that comes alive in your woman. The reason I call it unintended is because nowhere in your intentions, nowhere did you wake up and think, how can I leave my woman feeling upset? It was actually the very opposite. There's the cosmic tragedy. I was wanting to ease the burden and some pain came alive. So let's start to investigate, and you started to touch on it. The unintended pain that comes alive for my woman is it leaves her feeling unseen. Tell me more. Tell me what else is there for her. How would she express it on her terms?
She may discuss
alone?
Yes, she may just moments where she feels alone. Yeah.
Unseen, alone. What else? What else could be there if we go? If we explore around the edges?
She would experience me as distracted And I guess she also experiences an increase in burden.
Got it. Increased burden in what realm? In the childcare realm or the emotional realm or the...
I think she would feel an increased burden in looking after things that are outs, and it sounds really broad, outside of, the space provision. So there would be some emotional things, and there'd be some kind of practical items, because I'm distracted. Like a really good example is
Yeah, I bet there are some.
yeah, there's a good example of, actually a really easy example is I'll just forget to put out the bins.
Yeah,
That's something really, like, I'll
pictured
come
bins.
out I'll come out my office at maybe 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, and I'll throw some stuff in the bin and it'll be full, but I'm thinking about eating quickly to go to bed or to finish off working. And then the burden will then rest on her she will then do that in the morning. And then I will see that it's empty in the morning, and I'll be like, I feel guilty and bad because I know she's done it, but I don't necessarily acknowledge in a moment that day and say, hey, I noticed that you did that and I should have done that. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, got it. Beautiful. So it leaves her feeling a bit unseen, or maybe a little alone. It leaves her feeling burdened. It leaves her kind of upset about your distraction, or untended to, or unrecognized.
Unrecognized.
Yeah. And maybe kind of weighed down by the emotional burden, maybe the kind of practical home related, keeping things afloat back here at home. So we're actually just starting now to bring our fierce loving awareness to her pain. The skill in doing that is to recognize that it's real for her, even as we would never, ever, ever have wanted it. We didn't go out one morning to try and create this upset for her. It came alive for her at the very same time as we were actually trying to create ease and freedom from burden. The mind goes, wait, how is that possible? But the heart knows both of those things, actually. Everyone on this, listening to this podcast, can feel into your beautiful intentions, and then can also at a different time feel into your woman's upset. And we're learning to hold them both simply because both exist. So the skill is to bring a real love, like to bathe her pain in love. And we do that by validating it. We might even offer our understanding of it. Here's how holding those two things might sound in our communication. First of all, I'm going to speak to my beautiful intention, and then I'm going to speak to the very real pain she's in. Let's see how this sounds for you. My love, I recognize when I saw the bins empty this morning, I've been reflecting on how in my efforts to increase my providership so that we can be free of the worry of financial stress, we can feel kind of spacious, and you can feel a sense of ease in being supported to be caregiver to Bjorn. How I've gone about that sometimes has left you feeling, I imagine, unseen, alone, unrecognized for the burden you're carrying. See how when I framed it that way, both people are very human. There's no shouldn't, there's no right, wrong, there's no good, bad, there's no someone gets bathed in loving awareness and someone gets punished. Because you're not the pain causer, you're the provider who has evoked an unintended pain in this woman. A great analogy that I like to use for this particular part of the work, where we're holding our beautiful, valid human intentions while also recognizing the unintended pain it created is think of every time you've gone to light a candle in your life. You ever lit a candle?
100%.
You lit the candle to create candlelight. Yeah? You thought, I want candlelight, so I'm going to light the candle. What you didn't realize is that every single time you've lit a candle, somewhere in the room a shadow is being cast. The candle flame and the shadow are both part of reality. There's no candle ever been lit that did not cast a shadow. But if I go towards you and you light a candle and I say, stop being such a shadow caster, you'd be like, I'm not. I'm a candle lighter. So this is how we get wedded to our intention. I lit the candle. And this work just says there's another component of reality, as well as this beautiful intention, that is some unintended upset. It's alive, and we want to be able to tend to it. So there's the beginning of a non-oppositional communication. I was hoping for this, and it quite likely left you feeling that. That's the beginning. The next step is to invite her to share. The next step is to say, what has it been like for you, my love? What feelings do come alive in you? How has it been in terms of a burden? What feelings do arise? What pain has been evoked? And now we are standing in a curiosity instead of dismissing. We're getting curious. We're giving her permission to share. And the next step is bring validation. Yes, I can see how burdened that must have left you feeling. Those feelings make sense to me. Of course you feel unseen. Of course you're feeling unrecognized. We can still say, I never wanted that for you, but we have to be really fierce with our love in saying, you have every right to be in these feelings with me. So that's the beginning of how we hold both sides. And there's always, every single conflict that has happened since the dawn of time is two-sided. But the greater the pain that we experience, the less we can see the other side. Because to see the other side starts to feel as if we're condoning the other side. None of this work is about condoning. It's about recognizing reality, actually. Reality is always two-sided. There's always a me and a you happening at the same time.
And my mind actually cast to kind of, not so much in this piece, but more about criticism. Because, in that moment, we're in a lovely kind of acknowledged, safe exchange of communication. The repair has been started and but in a lot of our lives and a lot of people's lives, they receive feedback and it lands and it feels like they're being criticized, and it feels unsafe to hear that. And it feels, they are activated in responding to kind of criticism and being with criticism. So I guess a question I have around criticism is, how can we transform, and you might have already answered this actually, how can one transform their criticism into something that a partner can kind of receive and hear? And then the second half of that question, I guess, is how do we receive criticism and kind of transmute it into like loving feedback?
Something that we can digest. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, let's use your personal example, if we might. And it's okay if you want to kind of stretch the truth. I'm not going to suggest your woman is naturally always magnificently skillful, but I'm also not going to jump to the conclusion that she just like throws a whole lot of shit at you really unskillfully, but maybe somewhere in between. Am I right? At times?
I'd say she's pretty skillful, actually.
All right, great. Well, how might it sound? How might it sound on the unskillful end if she just came at you with the bins or with the like? How might it sound? And it's okay if this is not really truly her. Let's turn up the dial in terms of what's going to naturally land as criticism. How might she or they express their upset in this scenario unskillfully in a way that would be really hard to receive?
That's really easy
You
for me to say.
always, you never.
You know, I asked you to do this. I always ask you to do things and you never remember. It's like you don't care about the things I ask you. You know, what you're doing is always more important than what the family needs.
Great. Good example. I can already feel myself contracting in defensiveness. I'm just making note of all those so I can address them. Beautiful. So there is what I would call an unskillful expression. And I call it unskillful expression because you'll notice when we receive it, it doesn't open us. It doesn't invite us to tend to them. It has us instead very naturally recoil and start to defend ourselves against all those assertions. You always, you never are actually untruths because no one always or never anything. So that we're already having to defend. I don't always. Yesterday I did. I don't never. Yesterday I did. You don't care. There's another assertion. And we are loving, caring beings in whatever relationship this is. So you don't care immediately has us feel like we have to fight for our care to be seen because it's just been dismissed. And it's always about your needs, never about the needs of the family, leaves us cast as the selfish person who doesn't give a shit about his family. So can you feel how naturally we spontaneously want to fight against all of those mischaracterizations? Naturally. Now, there's a lot of bullshit out there in the world of Instagram that says if we bring our pain to someone and they get defensive, it means that they're a toxic person. Bullshit. It means that they're a person. It means that the ways that we've expressed ourselves have evoked a defensiveness in them. That's all it means. And defensiveness is an entirely human characteristic. I see it all day, every day. I feel it in myself. I witness it in the people I care about. It's all through us. I ran a free workshop for 2 hours the other day just around like how do we work with defensiveness rather than expecting it not to be there. So you can feel how we want to defend. Let's start with why. What pain in our hand, there's going to be a their hand as well, like there was last time. But in our hand, let's start with us. Let's start to attune to our experience. What pain comes alive in us when someone says, you always, you never, you don't care, it's always your needs, never the needs of the family. Very typically expressed pain, a man or woman or anyone on a rant often expresses himself. What pain comes alive in you if your partner speaks to you like that? What does it leave you feeling? What is evoked? I feel...
You feel accused.
Yeah.
You feel belittled. You feel... It is a sense of misunderstood, not seen.
Misrepresented.
Exactly, yeah. Lied about.
Yeah. And underneath that, it might just kind of be a very young feeling of hurt, like cast out. Like, how can you look upon my heart and see me as not loving? I feel like you've just cast me out of your awareness. I feel rejected or hurt or unloved. Beautiful. So we're just holding those feelings that came alive in us. They didn't make us feel those things. They did a thing and our feelings came alive. Can you feel the difference there? Just like we did a thing and their feelings came alive. We didn't make that. We can't make anyone feel anything, but we can do something and their feelings come alive. So we're holding that pain in one hand. We're holding the very real upset that came alive when they spoke to us that way. Now, in the other hand, we're going to try and listen behind their words to discover what's their longing, actually. And it's kind of a bit disguised, this is one of the difficult areas to work in. Behind someone's nasty criticism, blame, accusation, mischaracterizations. But let's go there. What do you think she's longing for? What are those accusations an expression of in terms of commitment or desire, or what's she aching to have recognized?
The first thing that came to me actually was connection and partnership.
Yeah.
There's a breaching connection and partnership. There's a longing to feel like partnership. There's a longing to feel like they matter
Yes.
to the other, to me. That there's like teamwork. There's like a we. Like I want to feel a we-ness.
Yes.
And
Beautiful.
acknowledgement.
Yes, acknowledgement. I want to feel like I matter to you. I want to feel connected. I want to feel a sense of partnership and we-ness. I want to feel supported. I want to feel like I'm in your awareness. Like you've got your awareness cast over us. I want to feel safe, I guess. I want to feel, I want to be in your presence, in your awareness. Beautiful. Now, listen to the difference between, I always have to remind you, you never remember, you clearly don't care about me or us. Everything's always about your needs. It's never about the family's needs. Feel the difference between that and I'm longing for connection. I want to feel partnership. I really ache to feel supported, and I want to know that I matter. Feel how the second is so much more tender, such an invitation. And if I had a button to give you, to press, to make your person, whoever they are, that skillful at expressing their longings, I'd give you that button and you just sit there pressing it all day, and you just have people honestly and authentically and vulnerably expressing their unmet needs. I want to feel more this. I don't feel very that. And you'd be like, okay, well, how can we tend to those? So that would be utopia for all of us. But we don't have that button. We've got another human being with a mind that has leapt to analysis. She's not recognizing her longings. Instead, she's just expressing what she's made it mean about you. You always, you never, you this, you that, you don't care, you always. It's all the you-ness. So how do we work with that? We have to get deeply curious about where those accusations are being spoken from. What's the pain? What's the longing? Can you feel how much mastery that takes when our nervous system is already responding to being blatantly misrepresented? You clearly don't care about me. What the fuck? After all I do for you, how dare you? Like, it's so easy to go there. So in the training that I offer, we constantly practice listening behind people's behavior and language into what's the pain, what's the longing. Because when we can meet them there, repair commences. Listen to this. Someone in my life that matters to me, I won't name, once said to me, "Fish, you never fucking listen to me." This is someone I've spent 12 years repairing with. They say to me, "Fish, you never fucking listen to me." My blood boils. I want to retaliate by saying, "Excuse me? I've just done 12 years worth of listening to you, and you haven't once actually invited me to share the depth of my pain in our relationship." Can you see how I immediately want to go on the defensive and bring out all the artillery to disprove the mischaracterization? And here's the shift. Instead of going there, I chose plan B. Plan B is, where's this being spoken from? Can you help me translate it? You never fucking listen to me. What are they experiencing?
They don't feel seen and understood.
I often don't feel seen. And so there we've just made a slight translation. Can you feel the difference? Now I can meet them in it. And I say to them, I can't imagine how painful it is that after all these years, you have so often felt unheard. I've just offered attunement to the person who was accusing me so wildly. And what happens next is they soften, they exhale, they start to cry. They say, yes, it has been really painful. I can say, tell me more. I care about this. They can share more. I can stay with them. We've opened the repair channel. Repair is really just bringing love to pain. But notice the big shift I had to make, that master stroke that, you might think after 17 years of teaching this work in the world and writing a book on it, that I might be masterful all the time. No way. No way. I will miss as many opportunities as I catch. But in that moment, I caught it. I noticed I went into defense, and instead I listened. Where is this being said from? What's the experience alive in them that they are unskillfully expressing? Now I can validate. So, coming back to the question of how do we receive complaint? How do we receive criticism? Step number one, take a moment to recognize the pain of receiving it. Like, ouch, that stings. Ouch, I feel so defensive right now. I feel so hurt. I feel so misrepresented. I feel so irritable and angry. Step two, I wonder what they're actually trying to express. What's the longing? What's the pain that could be alive in them that's come out in this shitty way, unskillful way? When you think about it, David, every time someone expresses their upset, any form of upset to us, can you see that what their deeper commitment is to have a pain-free relationship with us? They're bringing pain forward so that it can get recognized and tended to, so we can both be free of it. What a beautiful, beautiful commitment behind any complaint, any criticism, any nagging, any judgment. It's really saying, please see my pain so you and I can move to higher ground, so we can find brighter days. Doesn't occur that way, does it?
No.
I want to come back into your pain quadrant and just recognize, because I imagine there'll be a lot of women on the call, but there might be a lot of men on the call, and this will be specifically quite resonant for a lot of men. When in a man-woman relationship, when she brings her upset to us, one of the key feelings that can come alive, becomes very predominant for us, is a sense of, it's as if we're being told we're failing. It's as if we're being told that our love is not enough. And after everything we've done, I mean, look at the hours you're working, look at the focus that you're putting in, look at the way in which you're specifically trying to lead ease for your family, trying to create this kind of protective dome in which there's ease and joy and freedom. So as soon as a criticism lands in your field, it's very easy to have, it's like you're telling me I'm failing. It's like you're telling me I'm not enough. it's like you're telling me my love's not good or not worthy, or so that feeling of failure, often shame, often like really kind of small boy feelings. We feel like we're being told off. We feel belittled, as you said already, unrecognized in our care and in our love and in our devotion. So being able to recognize when those feelings arise for us and hold them in one hand, because they're true feelings, simply because here they are. I don't mean rationally true. I mean that they're alive right now. So they get to be seen. So we're holding them in one hand. And in the other hand, the inquiry becomes, I wonder what they were actually hoping for, if not to leave me feeling criticized. What are they hoping for? They want their pain seen. They want something addressed. They want awareness. They want a sense of connection. They want partnership. They want to feel more supported. Of course they do. I want all of that too. Notice in the criticism I got, Fish, you never fucking listened to me. I want to feel like I matter. I want to feel heard consistently. I want to feel like there's space for the pain still to get spoken about. So then if we're to bring that into a conversation, we can say, holding two things, we can say, when you said to me X, Y, Z, it brought up feelings of, I felt accused, belittled, and misunderstood. And I imagine that what you're really trying to share with me is this incredible longing for connection and support and ease. Am I right? Tell me more about what you're hoping for. Tell me more about what you're needing. Tell me more about what you're aching to experience. Yes, of course. What else? Oh my God, that makes sense. So we've gone underneath the accusation into the field of longing and meet them with a yes there. Meet them with as much love as we can there. So the practice is to go underneath, always, underneath the words, underneath the behavior, into pain and longing. And if we can do that, we're miles ahead of most of the world, like literally miles ahead. Makes it sound easy, doesn't it? But holy shit, it's not. It's really not. And what I say to people, like, because, when I train people over 8 or 9 weeks usually, sometimes a lot longer, but the minimum is 8 or 9 weeks to start to get this skill set. And they go and practice, and then they come back and go, oh my God, I was all prepared, and then in the heat of the moment, I just became retaliatory and defensive again. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. What I say to people when we're learning this method of honoring ourselves and honoring them, we're just honoring both human beings. We're just treating us both as human and allowing us both to get lovingly seen. That's all. There's no mystery to it. It's not magic. It's just loving both people. But when we're striving to practice this for the first 100 times, try it in peacetime. Try it not in the heat of the moment. Come back later. Come back later when you've both suffered for a few days and you've both gone cold. When you feel resourced enough, come back and say, hey, I recognize that I was really hoping for these positive things, but I've really left you feeling this upset, and I really want to care for it. And I was really feeling upset by how you expressed yourself, and now I'm starting to see the beauty of what you're actually hoping for. And can we talk a bit more about those? Can we make sure we both feel really understood? Attempting it in peacetime is going to go infinitely better than attempting to do this in the heat of the moment. And then once you build some confidence, and it takes a while, listening to the world for pain and longing instead of who's a good person, who's a bad person, what they should or shouldn't have done. As you become more masterful, you can start to reach for it in the heat of the moment. But use it as a repair later method. Yeah. Does that give you a little bit of a sense of what repair actually looks like?
That gives me a lot of sense.
Yeah.
A lot of sense what repair looks like. Because it gives a lot of sense. I had like the voice of 100 coaching clients in my ear, often with repair, is you do this, you hear each other, and I've had communication practice like before where everyone gets heard and it's understood your pain and my pain, and like we've listened to it, and you explain it to them, and so many people, the first thing they say is like, but how are we going to change what happened? But how are we going to do something different in the future? I find it really, really quite funny. That's always the first question. And my answer usually is, you'd be surprised the amount of times that actually, A, what needs to happen becomes obvious. And B, really, what you both wanted was to really be understood and heard. That often, not always, but that's often
even
that's
more
been what's
than
needed.
even more than some remedy to what happened. Yes.
Yeah.
I've got a good example of that. I was working with some clients who live in Perth, don't have no family support, had a young child, didn't have childcare, and it was a Saturday night, and they both had very important things on, and they couldn't both go. And they really got locked into this argument around both feeling made less than by each other. And when they brought it to me, we worked so much on validating the pain for both of them of missing out on that event, and how beautiful it was, how magnificent it was that they each wanted to attend these events, like what it meant to them, what that was an expression of, what they were longing for themselves and others at the event. And we spent long enough in the realm of both of their experiences that at the end, they've both felt so completely understood by each other that they went, it doesn't really matter so much. And they both stayed home and felt very in love. So the remedy, it's very natural for the mind to immediately go, pain is bad, conflict means there's something wrong, we need to fix it. Like at light speed, we go there. And the reason I talked about slowing down, and you're intuitively kind of reflecting this back to me, David, is that when we slow down and we tend to both experiences, only then can a very useful remedy be found. Only then can a solution arise. We can't find a good solution from a place of opposition. You can't speak to me like that. How dare you? I need you to go and fix your behavior. Or you're too reactive. I need you to be less reactive. They're not solutions. That's the language of blame. We have to tend to both experiences first to grow what I call mutual understanding. And then from that place where both human beings are being deeply recognized, then the question becomes, and it does have to eventually become, how could we do that differently? So if we bring it back to your kind of half real, half make-believe scenario, thanks for us working with that, it could sound like, my love, what are some ways I could go about trying to create this sphere of ease and protection for us and still leave you feeling seen and accompanied and like the burden is being shared? Leave you feeling much less unseen and much less alone. And she might say, well, bins? And you're like, okay, cool, I'm going to set a reminder, but we haven't been made wrong. We've been seen as made right, while also really wanting to tend to the unintended impact. That conversation really becomes, how can I clean up the unintended pain? How can I tend to the shadow my candle is casting? That becomes a really trusting conversation, even if the solutions aren't readily available. How could we together go about supporting me in my longing while also trying to create far less of the upset for you? Feel what a mutual place that is. It's really us saying, or it's really me saying, I want us to care for the relationship. I want us to always care for these little moments of unintended upset that we will inevitably create. What are some ideas? Have you got ideas? Let's try some things out. Are you willing to keep that on the table for the next few weeks? Let's experiment. Let's get creative. How could we do that? Yeah. Yeah.
It's like really creating a solution from a place of attunement instead of
Yeah.
trying to create a solution from, as you said, from a place of opposition.
Yeah. Yeah. Solutions created from opposition are oppositional. Like I was working with a client the other day and she said, I set this clear boundary with my mum. And I was like, oh, okay, let me hear it. And she said, I told my mum I will not tolerate her turning up unannounced. And I was like, we've certainly been clear. How did your mum respond? And she was like, mum got really upset. Therefore, she's a narcissist. And I was like, well, of course mum got upset because you delivered it as, I will not tolerate you. That's how it's going to land. So when we worked on it, how to express it more skillfully, she said, when you turn up unannounced, mum, it leaves me feeling pressured and disrespected. And I imagine, mum, you're turning up unannounced because you love spontaneous connection. You love feeling like your daughter's house is your house sometimes. Like you can feel comfortable to just kind of arrive and feel connected. So now can you feel how both human beings are being honored finally? There's not bad mum and a good daughter. There's both human beings are getting seen. And then she said, I wonder how we might work on you reaching out for connection for me in a way that doesn't leave me feeling kind of pressured to respond in my own home. And so that's on the drawing board for them. The mum said, that sounds great. I would love to I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to create that upset for you. Of course, I want to find ways that are more comfortable for you. Could we do this? Could we do this? Are there certain days? Could I text first? Would that make it better? So they're just now in a creative process of a mutual meeting of needs. How does mum get her need for connection met while the daughter gets her need to feel honored met? Mutual meeting of needs. Hallelujah. And it only grew out of the fact that we were able to honor both humans. As soon as we go into mum's the problem, we cast her out of the equation and we're not in repair. We're just in self-centered solution. It's valid, but it's not repair. Yeah.
That's a wonderful example, actually, of boundaries there. And expressing them in a way that is loving, is connective, that is compassionate, that is empathetic, there's understanding, that is we-orientated.
And before we were talking about making pain digestible, because I talked very early on about like we need to bring love to pain. That's what all healing is. So this method is, how do we bring love to pain? To bring love to pain, we have to make the pain digestible. The way my client did that with her mum is to say, Mum, here is some unintended pain that you've created. Here's some pain that you never wanted for me that I want recognized. So can you feel how for mum, suddenly the pain becomes digestible because it's framed as not what she ever wanted for her daughter, which is true. That mum never woke up one morning in her life wanting her daughter to suffer. She was wanting connection and it created unintended pain. So being able to frame our relationship pain as not what you ever wanted for me is a masterstroke. It makes it allows someone to stay present because they're not being framed as the villain. Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Oh, James, I could sit and ask you questions all day long, but time has run away with us. Big thank you for this conversation, for the coaching and for the delving into your methods, and just how much like compassion and empathy and togetherness is just sprinkled through all of this. As you said, I really deeply agree with you. If we saw each other's pain so much more deeply, so much of our world problems would disappear overnight. And I'm imagining that the listeners have listened to you and they're wondering where they can hear more from you, where they can find your content, where they can work with you. You know, you mentioned that you've got some training programs where you train people in this, but also you support coaches as well, I know.
Well, they can find me at leadbyheart.com or on Instagram, James_fish_gill. That's where you'll hear little chunks, podcast interviews like this, my little Instagram reels, which are little junk food nuggets of a much richer, full meal. I mean, you can only do so much with 60 seconds, right? In a world, like, I mean, the Instagram world is hilarious. Trying to sell, like I'm trying to promote non-opposition in an algorithm that only wants opposition. Get how ridiculous that is. That's why my work doesn't go viral. Whereas if I post anything about, you know, your mum's a narcissist and here's 7 reasons why, it goes viral because everyone just wants to digest the me versus you story. But you can find me at those 2 places. I run group coaching. I run one-to-one coaching programs. I train facilitators in this work. There are now about 40 plus facilitators all over the world, bringing this work to the world. But I guess I wanted to finish on, you kind of spoke about sprinkling in all the compassion. This work is very simple. Here's what we're actually doing. We're contacting reality. That's it. All I did there, David, was I contacted the reality of you and the reality of your partner, because reality consists of both. There's no belief system. It's not a stance. It's not a political view. It's like just contacting reality. And what I would also sort of superimpose on top of that is that I stand in a place where every human being is worthy of love, no matter what we've done. And that's going to be unsavory to hear from some people because they're like, what about perpetrators of sexual or domestic violence? But I will, until my dying breath, I will stand with any human being who wants to have their pain and longing recognized and therefore be more skillful in relating until my dying breath. So we're working with this sort of inherent belief that all humans are worthy, equally worthy. I don't choose sides, I choose both sides simply because both always exist. And that, you know, that's something for your listeners to chew on. Some people might be like, well, that's fucking naive. But I promise you, if you go deep enough into any conflict, deep into any conflict, you will find 2 human beings having experiences 100% of the time. There's never one party just being evil, ever. There's always some deep, rich context, usually extraordinary suffering. Yeah. Anyway, I'll leave them with that.
Yeah, I love that. So beautiful place to stop.
Thanks so much for having me in your space, and I really appreciate the work that you're doing in the world to lead men into places of more connection, greater accountability, greater empowerment, greater peace, greater love. Thank you for what you're doing.
Oh, thank you, James. Thank you, James. And thank you, listeners. I'm sure you've loved this episode and taken so much from it. This is a perfect episode I think this is the sort of episode that I would listen to with my partner many moons ago when we first met and we were trying to make our relationship better, because you will really take away, you will understand each other a lot deeper by just listening. It's in a car journey, you know, as you're wandering around the house doing a few chores and help you with your conflicting.
Because I'll make you both right. Not for your analysis, but for your experience.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
Thank you, James. Thank you, listeners. And I will say, ciao, ciao.